Section 1, 1,500 words. A thunderous roar split the sky as an object, massive beyond comprehension, tore through the atmosphere. The desert below trembled, sand whipping into furious storms as a colossal vessel descended. Its dark hull, scarred with battle wounds and cosmic debris, groaned as it impacted the earth, carving a canyon of destruction. For miles, the ground burned with residual heat, and a heavy silence followed. The wreckage stretched endlessly, a testament to the devastation it had endured before limping to this unknown world. Above, satellites blinked with frantic alerts. Government agencies scrambled, military forces mobilized, and within minutes, high-ranking officials received the same classified message. Something had crashed, and it wasn't human. From the first aerial surveillance, it was evident this was an invasion. No signs of aggression, no weapons firing, just a derelict starship, its once mighty hull now a graveyard of twisted metal. The world watched in anxious anticipation as blacked-out helicopters and armored convoys raced toward the crash site, securing the perimeter before the public could descend in a frenzy. Inside a mobile command center, Dr. Emily Carter, lead astrophysicist, stood before grainy drone footage, heart-pounding. "That ship is dead," she muttered, scanning the extensive damage. Whoever piloted it barely made out alive. As dusk settled over the crash zone, motion detectors flared to life. A collective inhale swept to the control room as something moved. Shadows stirred within the wreckage. Then, slowly they emerged. Humanoid but unmistakably alien. Their elongated forms were clad in torn, iridescent armor. Their eyes, sunken and dim, held none of the arrogance one would expect from an interstellar species. They were weak, starving, and barely standing. Gasps rippled through the assembled forces. Weapons were raised but not fired. The first true alien visitors to Earth weren't conquerors. They were survivors. One alien, taller than the rest, stepped forward, his once proud stance now slouched with exhaustion. His voice, deep and guttural, carried through the translators. "We surrender." A silence followed, thick with disbelief. Surrender? The word felt wrong. No demands, no negotiations, just submission. General Hastings narrowed his eyes. To who? The alien, Commander Varesh, exhaled, shoulders sagging. "To you," he said. "To your planet. We have nothing left. Take what you want." The room erupted into hushed murmurs. Scientists, soldiers, analysts, none had expected this. Dr. Carter stepped forward. "What happened to your ship?" Varesh hesitated, his gaze drifting back to the wreckage. "We were once powerful," he admitted. "A great empire among the stars. That ship was the last of our kind's greatest war vessels." His voice faltered. "It is broken beyond repair. We are broken beyond repair." Carter frowned, studying the wreckage again. No energy readings. No visible propulsion. Just dead metal. "You came here to die," she realized. Varesh's silence was answer enough. The weight of the moment pressed down on them all. A once mighty alien race, reduced to begging for scraps on Earth. But humanity was not the kind to waste an opportunity. The next morning, a team of engineers and scientists stood before the alien ship, gazing up in awe. Even in its ruined state, the vessel was a marvel. Sleek alloys, unknown markings, impossibly intricate designs, all belonging to a civilization far beyond Earth's technological reach. Dr. Carter led the inspection, running her hand over the ship's cold exterior. "This thing could be centuries ahead of us," she whispered. "We need to get inside." The Zalari, what remained of them, watched with muted amusement. They had tried to repair the ship for years, failing at every turn. To them, it was useless. But the humans? They were curious. A demolition team carefully cut to the outer hull, revealing an interior stripped bare. Most systems had been gutted, either scavenged for survival or lost during the crash. But deeper inside, remnants of something greater remained. A towering console, covered in alien script, pulsed faintly, barely functional. Carter's fingers danced over the surface, activating a flickering hollow interface. Data, scrambled and fragmented, scrolled before her eyes. "This is their ship's log," she murmured. She pressed further, decrypting what she could. Then, suddenly, a warning. Carter's breath hitched as she scanned the file. Her heart pounded. This ship hadn't simply crashed. It had fled. She turned to Varesh. "You weren't just escaping battle," she accused. "You were running." The Zalari commander stiffened, his weary gaze darkening. "You do not understand the enemy we faced." "Then explain it to me," she shot back. Varesh hesitated. Then, after a long silence, he finally spoke. "We were betrayed," he admitted, "by our own kind." A chill ran through Carter. "The Zalari Empire is gone," Varesh continued, "but something worse took its place." Carter clenched her jaw. Earth had been the dumping ground for an empire's last survivors. And if Varesh was right, something was still out there, watching, waiting. And now, it knew exactly where they were. Section 2, 1,500 words. The Zalari had given up on their ship long before it crashed. To them, it was a lifeless husk, a relic of a once great empire. But to humans, it was a challenge. Dr. Carter and her team worked relentlessly, documenting every inch of the wreckage. What the Zalari saw as irreparable, human engineers saw as a puzzle waiting to be solved. Inside the ship's ruined corridors, teams of specialists mapped out what remained. The propulsion system was gone, the primary power core was completely destroyed, and most internal systems were fried. But despite the damage, some subsystems still had power, barely. Carter stood in front of what seemed to be a broken energy distribution node, its design unfamiliar yet logical. She turned to her team. "The Zalari don't think in redundancy," she noted. "Everything relies on one perfect system. No backups. No workarounds." A mechanic scoffed. "Yeah, well, that's their problem." He tapped the console. "We can reroute this." Varesh overheard the conversation, his expression unreadable. "That's impossible," he said flatly. Carter smirked. "For you? Maybe." The humans worked quickly, bypassing the ship's dead core with modified fusion reactors from Earth. They didn't need to restore the Zalari's complex quantum drive. They just needed enough power to get the ship functional. The Zalari watched in stunned silence as days of human improvisation achieved more than their years of failed repairs. Varesh stepped forward, examining the hastily assembled system. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't even efficient. But it worked. "You patched it," he muttered. "Adapted it." Carter corrected. "Your people rely too much on perfection. We don't." For the first time since their arrival, the Zalari looked uneasy. The repairs continued, and soon humans cracked open systems the Zalari thought were lost forever. One by one, long dormant consoles flickered to life. Holographic displays projected ancient logs. Power level stabilized, and the ship hummed faintly with life once more. Then they found the vault. At first, it seemed like just another section of wreckage. A sealed chamber, inaccessible through normal means. But something about its shielding felt different. Carter's team drilled through the barriers, expecting little more than wreckage. What they found instead changed everything. Data storage devices, still intact, containing classified Zalari records. The humans wasted no time decrypting everything. At first, it was just fragmented logs, battle reports, old fleet positions, distress calls. But as Carter scrolled further, her breath caught. The Zalari weren't just fleeing. They had been hunted. She turned to Varesh, eyes sharp. "Who were you running from?" Varesh hesitated, but the truth was already on the screens. A ruthless, expansionist alien race, the Hunters, had torn to the Zalari Empire, not through brute force, but by exploiting their weaknesses. The Zalari were advanced, but fragile. Their ships relied on a single flawless system, their military on rigid tactics, their technology on absolute perfection. The Hunters adapted faster. They studied the Zalari, countered them, and then destroyed them. Carter clenched her jaw. "You weren't just their enemy," she realized. "You were their test subject." Varesh said nothing. The humans continued digging. More secrets surfaced. Corrupt leaders, internal betrayals, entire fleets sacrificed to buy time for the elite. The Zalari hadn't just lost a war. They had been sold out, and now Earth was sitting on the last piece of their empire. Tension spread through the ranks. Some Zalari officers, still clinging to pride, tried to sabotage the repairs. They feared that making the ship operational would draw the hunters to Earth. But they underestimated human paranoia. Security forces caught them instantly. Within minutes, the sabotage was undone and the perpetrators were under guard. Carter confronted Varesh directly. "You knew about this," she accused. Varesh's expression hardened. "Would you have helped us if you did?" Carter exhaled sharply. "You're right, but now we're in this mess together." She turned back to the ship. "And unlike your people, we don't run." For the first time, Varesh felt fear, not of the hunters, but of humans. They weren't just fixing his ship. They were weaponizing it. Section 3, 1,500 words. The Zalari ship was no longer a derelict wreck under human hands. It had become something new, a fusion of alien sophistication and human ingenuity. What the Zalari had deemed useless, humans had repurposed, proving once again that adaptability was Earth's greatest strength. Power surged through the restored systems, illuminating long-dead corridors. What little remained of the Zalari's original technology was now augmented with human components. Primitive by comparison, but functional. It wasn't about perfection. It was about making it work. The Zalari observed in silence, their disbelief growing with each passing day. They had never seen a species like this. Where the Zalari spent centuries refining their ships to flawlessness, humans had rewired an alien warship in weeks. They didn't master the tech. They forced it into submission. And it was working. Varesh stood with Carter in the ship's command center, watching as human engineers ran final diagnostics. The once-dead consoles pulsed with new life, patched together with crude but effective modifications. "This shouldn't be possible," Varesh muttered. Carter didn't look up. "That's what you keep saying." A technician turned from the control panel. "Power levels are stable. Weapon systems are next." Varesh tensed. "Weapons?" Carter's expression remained neutral. "Of course. You think we're bringing this thing online just to admire it." The room fell silent. The Zalari survivors had surrendered their ship, expecting humanity to strip it for parts or study it from afar. They never expected this. "You cannot use this ship in war," Varesh said slowly. Carter finally turned to him. "Your people used it in war, and they lost." Varesh clenched his jaw. He had expected Earth's leaders to take the ship apart, to study it, maybe even imprison the Zalari. But this? Humans weren't just scavenging technology. They were preparing for a fight. A sudden alarm interrupted them. The ship's long-range sensors, previously thought useless, sputtered to life. A garbled signal appeared on screen, distorted but unmistakable. An incoming object. Silence filled the control room. Carter stepped closer to the console, eyes narrowing. The object was moving fast, its trajectory erratic, but the readings were clear. It wasn't human. Varesh inhaled sharply. "They found us." The weight of his words settled over them. The hunters hadn't just wiped out the Zalari. They had tracked them across the stars, ensuring no survivors remained. The crashed ship had been a beacon, leading them straight to Earth. Carter's hands curled into fists. "Then we don't have much time." She turned to the team. "How fast can we bring weapons online?" The engineers scrambled. They had restored power, reinforced the structure, even integrated some of their own technology, but they hadn't tested the ship's firepower. Most of the original weapons were useless without the Zalari's power source. But humans didn't need perfection. They just needed something that worked. The order was given. Activate the weapons. Patch together human and Zalari tech. Prepare to fight. The Zalari survivors watched in growing horror. This wasn't their war anymore. They had given up. But humans? They were choosing to stand their ground. Varesh turned to Carter. "You don't understand. You can't defeat them." Carter's voice was calm. "We don't have to. We just have to make them regret coming here." Across the wreckage, military convoys mobilized. Fighter jets roared overhead. The world had been preparing for a first contact for years, but no one had expected it to happen like this. The hunters were coming, and humanity was ready. Section 4, 1,500 words. The first hunter ship broke through the atmosphere like a falling blade, sleek and predatory. It wasn't massive like the Zalari warship, but it didn't need to be. It was a scout, a harbinger. More would come. Inside the Zalari ship, now human territory, the air was electric. Engineers barked final checks. Soldiers loaded weapons, and technicians patched together firing solutions from a hybrid system never meant to exist. The ship was still a wreck, but now it was a loaded gun. Carter stood at the command console, watching the hostile signature close in. Let's see what this thing can do. The makeshift weapons came online. Earth's technology strapped to an alien warship, crude but dangerous. Missiles, railguns, and retrofitted energy cannons hummed with barely contained power. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, but it held. The hunters made no demands, no attempt at communication. They had no interest in negotiation. Their mission was extermination. The moment they got within range, they opened fire. A streak of burning plasma tore through the sky, slamming into the desert floor just outside the crash site. The shock wave sent tremors through the ship, rattling its unstable structure. A second blast followed, closer this time, but humanity had already adapted. Before the next shock could land, the makeshift weapons fired. Railgun slugs, built from Earth's best metallurgy, punched through the sky with devastating force. The Zalari tech-enhanced targeting system locked onto Hunter's ship with deadly precision. The first volley hit. The Hunter scout shuddered under the impact. It wasn't destroyed, but it wasn't invincible either. It pulled back, recalculating. Varesh stared at the screens, his disbelief turning into something deeper. Fear? No. Respect. Humans were fighting back. The Hunter ship pivoted, adapting to the unexpected resistance. Its weapons charged for a kill shot, but humanity wasn't done. Missiles, launched from the repurposed Zalari warship, closed the distance in seconds. The Hunters had never faced Earth's style of warfare before. Brute force, relentless pressure, and an absolute refusal to back down. The first missile struck dead center. The second followed a heartbeat later. The Hunter scout exploded, a violent flash of fire and debris scattering across the desert. The control room erupted in cheers. The Zalari stood frozen. Varesh exhaled slowly. You destroyed them. Carter didn't look away from the screen. The victory felt hollow. The Hunters never sent just one ship. More were coming. The sensors flared. New contacts. Larger ones. The first battle had been a test. Now came the real fight. Carter turned to her team. No more fixing. No more patchwork. We push this thing as hard as it'll go. The Zalari warship, rebuilt, reforged, rose from the desert floor, its hybrid engines roaring with defiance. It wasn't just alien anymore. It wasn't just human. It was something new, and it was ready for war.